The night-blooming figs. At the edge of the Palatine Hill, behind the ruins of a villa long forgotten, fig trees began to bloom, but only at night. Their blossoms, pale as bone, opened with a faint crackle like burning parchment. And inside each blossom was not seed nor nectar, but a fragment of parchment. Tiny scrolls curled tight, bearing only a single word. No two were the same. Breath, listen, bone, return. Children gathered them, called them moon figs. But the priests of Vestal refused to approach. They said the air around them smelled like ink and old wine, the scent of prophecy. When the figs were touched at sunrise, they crumbled into ash. The last jar. From the archives beneath the Temple of Jupiter, a final relic was unearthed. It was not supposed to be found. It had no record, no inscription, no sigil. It was simply a jar. Sealed in wax, plain clay, no larger than a man's hand. A trembling scribe broke the seal. Inside was no liquid, no powder, only air. But the air that escaped the jar was warm and fragrant with the scent of bay leaves and cedar wood. And in that moment, all torches in the chamber flickered. One scribe fell to his knees weeping. Another began to laugh, softly, like a child remembering something from a dream. They say that jar had once held the final breath of the Erythraean Sibyl, that her last whisper was stored for a time far ahead, a time when the veil would tremble again. The jar was resealed and lost. Or perhaps it is listening even now. The echoes never fade. So, what do we make of this? The laughter that comes when no one speaks. The dreams of fire that leave no burn. The children who hum melodies older than stone. What were the Sibyls truly? Prophets? Priestesses? Portals? Or something else entirely? Something that breathes before the founding of Rome. That sang when wolves howled at the moon. That etched its truths not in stone or scroll, but in shadow and wind and silence. And so, listener, tonight as you close your eyes and drift further into calm, remember this. Not all voices fade. Some are only waiting for quiet enough ears. And when you hear laughter in the distance, soft and rising like incense, do not fear. It may only be the Sibyls. Laughing, yes, but not at you. Laughing with time itself.
Chapter 4. The Curse of the Silent Triumph. You've wandered far, and yet the warmth of the fire still welcomes you. The moon above the Roman sky glows like an ancient silver coin, and the streets below are quieter than memory. Your breath is soft now. The shadows no longer frighten. They only hold stories waiting to be told. Tonight, we explore a moment in Rome's history that few dared to write down. It is a tale of silence, not peace, not mercy, but a curse, born in victory and carried like an invisible crown. This is the story of a triumph without celebration, a war won with no sword drawn, and a general whose name faded even as marble was carved in his honor. Let us begin. The general who spoke with no voice. His name was Gaius Furius Dolabella. Born of old patrician blood, tall, ash-haired, with eyes the color of burnt parchment. He was not known for glory, nor cruelty, nor even skill. He was known for one thing only. He never spoke. From boyhood, he chose silence. Not from illness, not from fear. He simply listened. And when he had something to say, he would write it down in a precise, angular hand. Some said the gods had whispered something into his ear when he was young, something so powerful, so terrifying that he vowed never to speak again. Others said it was discipline, that Dolabella believed words weakened the mind. But his silence drew attention. And in the chaos of Rome's eastern frontier, when soldiers mutinied and enemies burned crops in the moonlight, the Senate, desperate, turned to him. Let the man who never speaks command the legions. And so he went. The war without swords. It should have been a disaster. 3 cities burned, supplies vanished, armies fractured. And into this walked Dolabella, alone, with no herald, no speech, no retinue of generals. He carried only a staff and a sealed scroll. Within a month, the fires had died. Within 2, the enemy laid down their arms. Within 3, the war ended. No battles, no blood, no declarations. The city surrendered not out of fear, but confusion. They said the general came to their gates and simply waited, that he said nothing, that birds perched on his shoulders, that the winds changed when he walked, that one night all the elders of the enemy's council dreamed the same dream, a man standing in a field of ash, whispering without sound. The next morning, they surrendered. The return to Rome. Rome had never seen such a thing. A triumph, the highest honor for a victorious general, was quickly prepared. White horses, laurel wreaths, chariots with golden wheels. The streets were swept, the balconies filled. But Dolabella made one request. No music, no cheering, no voices, only silence. At first, the Senate laughed. Then they obeyed. For something in his stillness disturbed them. Not fear, not awe, just a quiet, ancient discomfort, as if Dolabella reminded them of something forgotten.
The silent triumph. On the morning of the parade, the people gathered in hushed confusion. The usual shouts and song were absent. The air felt like glass. The general's chariot rolled down the Via Sacra, drawn not by horses, but by 4 oxen, their horns painted blue. Behind him marched soldiers who never looked left nor right. No one spoke, not even the children. All that could be heard were sandals on stone, and the occasional caw of a bird far above the forum. And then something stranger still. As Dolabella passed, the sky dimmed, though no clouds were there. The flame in the temple of Vesta flickered once, then burned blue. Dogs howled in the Subura, and in the Curia, where senators watched from above, one of them, a man named Gellius, suddenly stood, pale, whispering. He is not alone. He fainted. The aftermath. That night, Dolabella disappeared. His estate was found abandoned, his armor untouched, his bed still made. He left only one item, a wooden box sealed with wax. Inside were 3 items. A map of Rome with 10 locations marked with tiny stars. A scroll bearing a single line. The loudest curse is silence. And a small laurel wreath, not gold, not lead. From that day forward, no one spoke his name again aloud. A superstition grew that to speak his name would invite silence into your own home, your own thoughts, your own dreams. And yet, curiously, the places marked on his map, they all suffered something strange in the years that followed. A library burned with no fire. A bathhouse flooded with salt water from nowhere. A fountain began to flow upward for exactly 1 hour before stopping forever. And a woman gave birth to twins, one of whom never cried, not even once, and grew to speak in riddles only during the new moon. The curse or the warning? Was Dolabella cursed? Or did he carry something that Rome itself refused to understand? Was the silence in his triumph a rebellion against the noise of empire? Or a protection, a wall against something older, deeper, waiting to be released? Some said he was not a man at all, but a vessel for a forgotten god, one who had lost their voice when men first began to worship war over wisdom. Others said he was Rome's mirror, and that what frightened them was not him, but what he reflected. And so, as you rest, let your thoughts settle now. Let your breath become slow and even. As the fire beside you dims, imagine that silent parade, the oxen's slow pace, the sandals upon stone, the city breathless in wonder. And as your eyes grow heavy, remember, some triumphs do not come with horns and cheers. Some arrive quietly, under a veil of stillness, to remind us that power does not always shout. Sometimes it listens, and sometimes it never speaks at all. Chapter 5. The Shadows Beneath the Cloaca Maxima. Tonight, we follow a path few dare to tread, not among marble pillars or golden halls, not within triumphs or temples, but beneath, far beneath, where the heartbeat of ancient Rome still pulses unseen. This is the story of the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's oldest and deepest sewer, built to drain the marshes and serve the gods. But within those tunnels, something lingered. Not just water, not just time, but shadows that were not cast by torches. The mouth of the monster. The Cloaca Maxima, whose name means the greatest drain, began as an engineering miracle. It swallowed the unwanted, the rain, the waste, the forgotten. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when the market still slept and the fountains trickled alone, strange reports would reach the ears of Rome's custodians. That workers heard voices from the tunnels when no one was there. That tools vanished only to be found later twisted. That figures stood waist-deep in water, unmoving beneath the grates, and disappeared when called to. One worker described it as like something watching with no eyes, listening without breath. He left Rome the next day. The engineer's map. In the archives beneath the Temple of Saturn, a fragile scroll was discovered, a map of the Cloaca, drawn by Lucia Priscus, Rome's first recorded female engineer. She had been assigned to expand the tunnel walls to ease the flooding in the Forum. But instead of blueprints, her parchment was filled with symbols, spiral sigils, notations in languages unknown, and one phrase repeated along the main tunnel. What does not die drains downward. Her superiors dismissed the drawings. Lucia vanished 3 weeks later. Her last letter, found sealed in wax and hidden behind a loose brick, contained a single sentence. There is a chamber where sound is swallowed. I went there. I cannot leave it. The Chamber of Stillness. Beneath the Forum Boarium, at a junction where 3 tunnels met like twisted roots, workers discovered a room that was not on any map. It had no doorway, no ceiling of brick or tile. The chamber's walls were black stone, smooth as obsidian, and dry, though the tunnel outside dripped endlessly. At its center sat a circular dais, untouched by time,
and etched with words no one could translate. When one worker shouted, the sound was sucked away, as if the walls drank noise. When another stepped on the dais, he fainted. He awoke whispering the same name over and over again. Numa, Numa, Numa. The name of Rome's second king. But no records show that King Numa had ever stepped foot inside the cloaca. Or perhaps he never left it. The Festival of Forgotten Water. Once a year, an obscure ritual was held, long after the Vestals had doused their flames and before the Saturnalia began. It was called Vetus sub aqua, the old beneath the water. Only the Pontifex Minor, the lesser priest, attended. Only one torch was used. He would descend alone into the Cloaca Maxima. He would walk until the torch dimmed, and he would whisper a question into the dark. No one ever recorded what he asked, but each time he returned with a name. One year the name was Livia. She died a month later, a quiet fall down stone steps. Another year the name was Julius, and on the Ides of March blood filled the curia. After 3 decades, the ritual stopped. Too many names, too much truth.
In 82 BCE, during the reign of Sulla, heavy rains exposed an iron grate near the Tiber that had been sealed for generations. When it was lifted, soldiers expected roots or debris. Instead, they found a ladder descending into the earth. The ladder was not rusted. The rungs were made of a material unknown, humming faintly in the torchlight. A slave descended first. He returned minutes later, mouth sewn shut with silver thread, eyes wide, unblinking but alive. He lived for 20 more years. Never spoke, never slept, only sat beside the grate staring down into it. And when he died, his lips parted, revealing a key hidden beneath his tongue. The key melted in the sunlight. The silence beneath civilization. So what, dear listener, do we make of all this? Was the Cloaca Maxima simply an aqueduct of stone and function? Or was it a vein pulsing with Rome's darkest memories? A place where secrets drained not away, but downward, towards something older than Rome, older than Etruria, perhaps older than memory itself. Some say Rome was built on 7 hills, but others whisper it was not built on hills. It was built to keep something buried beneath them. And so, as you drift, let your thoughts follow the soft sound of trickling water. Let the echoes become lullabies. As you imagine moss-covered stones and the hush of torchlight reflected in wet tunnels, you are safe now. The shadows are not here for harm. They only wish to be remembered. For beneath the marble and the glory, Rome was always a city of whispers. And tonight, the whispers are with you. Chapter 6, The Feast That Never Ended. The embers are soft tonight. The city above sleeps, unaware of the stories that drift like perfume through the chambers of time. You've walked through shadows beneath stone, stood in the hush of lost triumphs, and followed the forgotten breath of Rome's ancient tunnels. Tonight, we draw closer, not to the underworld, but to the velvet silk of forgotten luxury and madness. There was once a feast in Rome, endless, eternal, and somehow still happening. A banquet that began and never truly ended. Let us begin. The Domus Aurea's hidden table. When Emperor Nero built his palace, the fabled Domus Aurea, or Golden House, it stretched like a dream across the city. Walls of polished ivory, fountains that flowed with wine, and ceilings painted with stars that moved as the sun passed overhead. But beneath all of that, Hidden in a substructure not listed in any plan was a dining room without doors. No records mention it. No servant spoke of it. Yet, marble workers often heard laughter echoing through the stone. Not cruel, not joyous, but empty. As if mouths moved and voices followed, but no soul said behind the words. The first invitation. The first written mention came in a wax tablet recovered from the ruins near the baths of Titus, long after Nero was gone. It read, "I dined where no flame flickered and no food cooled. The wine refilled itself. The guests knew my name, though I had never spoken it. I left, or so I thought, but in dreams I return each night." There was no name on the tablet, only a seal, a crescent moon beneath a crown of poppies. A room that turned. According to fragments found centuries later, the hidden dining hall had no corners. Its walls were round, seamless. The ceiling was not painted, but made of a dark crystal that reflected nothing. At the center stood a table made not of wood or stone, but of salt, carved smooth and always cool to the touch. And the most curious feature? The room turned. Not visibly, not with motion, but slowly, night by night, the room shifted, so that its entrance was never where it had been before. Only those invited in dreams knew how to find it again. The guests who did not age. Scrolls discovered beneath the ruins of the Esquiline Hill described a pattern. Nobles, poets, slaves, and merchants, all vanishing for a time, then returning with pale skin, glassy eyes, and no hunger. They remembered nothing of where they'd been, yet they spoke the same phrase over and over. The olives were sweet, and the figs had no seeds. It was nonsense to most, but some whispered that those were the first dishes served at the feast that never ended. And each time that phrase was spoken, someone nearby grew faint, or wept, or disappeared themselves within a fortnight.
The music no one could trace. Some nights in Rome, particularly the night before the calends of October, musicians across the city would hear their lyres vibrating on their own. Not all. Only those tuned to a specific pitch, a soft, strange chord that echoed like something between a sigh and a hum. It came from beneath the earth. Those who followed the sound never returned. But a child, once found asleep near a cracked wall in the Palatine Hill, repeated the following in her sleep. They dance even without feet. They toast even without wine. And they wait for you because the table is never full. She awoke with a piece of honey date pressed into her hand. But that fruit had been extinct in Rome for over 200 years. The eternal host. Legends whisper of the host, a being neither man nor spirit, who greets each new guest of the banquet with the same soft words. You are late. We began without you, but the seat is still warm. He wears no crown, yet all bow to him. He eats nothing, yet his cup is always full. His voice is familiar to all, though no one remembers ever hearing it before. Some say he was once Nero himself. Others say he is something older, a spirit of indulgence, cursed to feed others for eternity. But those who've dreamt of him say he weeps between courses, and that his tears fall into the soup, making it taste of memory. What happens if you eat? This is what is most often warned. To sit at the table is one thing, to watch, to smell, even to toast. But if you eat just one bite, you will always return. Not every night, not always in dreams.
sometimes in flashes while walking the market or resting your eyes. A bite of roasted boar may flash before your eyes. A candied fig may bloom on your tongue. A name you do not know may slip from your lips. Cassia, Primus, Leontius. You will be pulled. And someday your seat will be permanently warm. The feast in your dreams. Some who listen closely on quiet nights when the rain falls gently and the city is asleep say they can almost hear it. The faint clink of goblets, the soft scrape of silver on stone, the whisper of silk robes as guests lean in to speak. If you dream of this, do not be afraid. Only if you wake with salt on your fingertips or wine on your breath should you worry. And if you find a chair pulled out beside your bed, be cautious. It may not be yours. As you close your eyes, let the scent of sweet herbs and candle wax drift through your mind. Let the music fade softly as your thoughts grow still. You are far from the feast tonight. You are safe. You are home. And the table does not call your name, not tonight. But know this, not all banquets end with goodbye. Some wait forever. Chapter 7. The Coin That Never Aged. The fire is low now. Outside your window, the night presses gently, velvet dark, soft asleep. And in your hands, imagine this, a single Roman coin, cold but not unpleasant, silvered yet never tarnished, etched with a face whose eyes seem to follow you no matter how you turn it. This is not just any coin. It is the coin that never aged. And it has passed from hand to hand, across centuries, across kingdoms, across fates, always reappearing when someone is about to disappear. The first discovery. The coin was first recorded during the reign of Hadrian, found in the hand of a stonemason who vanished mid-shift. His tools were neatly stacked, his tunic folded beside a half-finished arch, and in his open palm lay the coin, glinting in the sun, untouched by dust. It bore a face that was neither emperor nor god, not Apollo, not Mars, not Caesar, but a woman. Eyes half closed, lips curled into the faintest smile, and beneath her portrait, a single word, Revertia, she who returns. A coin without empire. Numismaticists, the ancient coin scholars, argued over its origin. The silver wasn't Etruscan. The lettering was neither Latin nor Greek. Its edge bore tiny dots that, when counted, always added to 37, even when new ones seemed to appear. No mint had ever claimed it. No one could replicate it. It was not of any known empire. And yet, it was found all over Rome. Always the same coin, never more than one at a time. The disappearances. In the centuries that followed, reports began to collect like dust on forgotten ledgers. A senator who vanished on the Senate steps. A baker's daughter who stepped into the fog and never returned. A gladiator who won his match only to dissolve into mist beneath the arena sands. Each time, the coin appeared within a few feet of their last known position. Untouched, shining, waiting. The public whispered it was cursed, that to touch it was to be chosen. But some chose it willingly. The test of the oracle. In the final days of the Sibylline priestesses, Rome's sacred oracles, a test was performed. One Sibyl, blindfolded, held a selection of coins from across the empire, laid in front of her. She was told to choose the one that did not belong. Her hand paused above many, but never touched, until it hovered above Revertia's coin. And in a voice low as falling ash, she whispered, "This coin is not of earth, nor of man, nor of time. It buys nothing but the road." When she opened her eyes, they were silver. She never spoke again.
The map that found the coin. Centuries later, a map was uncovered in the hidden library beneath the Temple of Janus, a map of Rome's oldest paths drawn with ink that shimmered faintly in moonlight. Curiously, it did not mark roads or districts. Instead, it showed disappearances. Red dots placed with precision. And at the center of each cluster, always someone had once held the coin. It was not a map of Rome's growth. It was a map of its vanishings. At the bottom, a warning was scrawled. If she chooses you, do not run. It is not escape. It is return. The coin in the river. One account from 312 CE tells of a fisherman who pulled a coin from the Tiber, catching it in his net. That night, he dreamed of a woman standing at the river's edge, eyes half-lidded, whispering, "You were never meant to stay." He awoke drenched in water, though his bed was dry. The next morning, his boat was found adrift, empty, except for a single coin placed gently on the seat. Modern echoes. Even in recent centuries, long after the empire crumbled, stories remained. A dig beneath the Colosseum unearthed a strange coin. The archaeologist who cataloged it vanished 2 days later, right after telling his wife, "I think I found something that was never meant to return." The coin was mailed back anonymously. No fingerprints, no postage marks. Still untarnished, still watching. So, what is it? A relic of another time? A cue? A curse? A reminder? Some say it was forged by the gods to reclaim those who wandered too far. Others say Revertia is not a goddess, but a place, a realm that holds everything that disappeared unjustly. A child's toy, a soldier's promise, a mother's song. And those who vanish with the coin are only being reclaimed. And as you drift tonight, let the sound of falling coins be your lullaby, soft, distant, shimmering. Let the silver sleep beneath your pillow, if only in your dreams. And if ever you feel a cool circle rest in your hand and hear a voice say, "It is time to come back," do not fear. The journey is not the end, only a return to where you were always meant to be. Chapter 8. The Watcher of the Ninth Gate. The air is still tonight. The streets of memory lie silent, cloaked in the hush of Roman shadows. And beneath the old stones of the city, another gate waits. Not one marked on maps, not one written in stone, but a gate whispered about in the oldest guard scrolls. A gate that was never opened, because it was never supposed to exist. This is the tale of the ninth gate, and the man who watched it alone until even time forgot his name. The known eight. Roman history speaks of 8 great gates that encircled the city. From the mighty Porta Capena to the venerable Porta Flaminia, each opened to the world beyond, letting armies and emperors pass. These gates were watched day and night by the urban cohorts, proud guardians of the empire's heart. But there was a rumor, even in the earliest centuries, of a ninth gate. Not built, not carved, but revealed. Only on nights when the moon bled red, and only to those who had once bled for Rome. The soldier without record. In the year 106 CE, during Trajan's reign, a new century was assigned to a strange post.
His name was Marcellus Quintus Varro, though no census ever recorded it. No legion scrolls mention him. No grave ever bore his name. But a crumbling codex found in a cellar beneath the Palatine mentions him just once. He who stands where no gate stands, he who watches for what must not pass. Marcellus was stationed where no roads met, no building stood, only a blank wall of dark basalt buried between the shadows of dusk and the scent of old jasmine. The night of the first red moon. On the eve of the autumn equinox, the moon turned the color of rust. The sky hushed. Dogs ceased to bark, and the torch near Marcellus's post refused to burn, though the wick was untouched. That was when it happened. A seam split down the basalt wall, silent as breath, and within it a hollow. Not a gate in the usual sense, but an opening without border, darker than shadow, pulsing faintly like a sleeping eye. And before it stood a man, the other watcher. The figure wore no armor, no insignia, only a robe of deep indigo and a circlet of braided copper. He spoke in Latin, but in a dialect Marcellus didn't recognize. "This gate is not for Rome," he said. "It is for what lies beneath remembrance." He stepped aside, and Marcellus stepped forward. But something quiet pulled him back. A whisper in a voice he hadn't heard in years, his mother's, saying only, "Not yet." The years of silence. Marcellus remained at that post for 47 years. He never spoke of what he saw on the red moon nights. He never requested transfer, never fell ill, never aged. Or so it was said. A new generation of guards would find him there each decade, still standing, still silent, still watching a gate that no one else could see. He carried a blade that never rusted, and on his wrist a band of copper braided into 9 knots. The last shift. When the moon turned red again in the year 1530 CE, the gate opened for the final time. This time, no one saw it except Marcellus. A nearby cohort reported only a strange wind and the faint smell of myrrh. In the morning, Marcellus was gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle. Only a single braid of copper rested on the stone. And, carved into the basalt wall, 9 words, etched so faintly they could only be read in moonlight. He watched the gate so we would not enter. What lies beyond? No tale speaks of what's behind the 9th gate. Some say it leads to a city beneath Rome, forgotten by both time and gods. Others whisper it is a mirror gate, showing what Rome might have become had its darker dreams ruled. There are those who claim to have seen it in dreams, a great archway where faceless crowds gather, always waiting, always reaching, their hands cold, their mouths open, but no sound, only watching, always watching. The dreamer's warning. A single letter, dated centuries later, was found in the walls of a Roman monastery. I dreamt of the 9th gate again, of Marcellus still standing, but now with eyes closed, and the figure in indigo telling me, "You may enter now, but you will not remember your name." I awoke with 9 knots tied in my bedsheet. I untied 8, but the 9th would not unravel. As you close your eyes, if you feel a hush deeper than silence, if the night seems to lean in a little closer, it is only the watcher passing through your dreams. He will not harm you. He asks for no offering. Only that you remember this. Some gates should never be opened, and some guardians are forgotten not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. Sleep now, far from gates, far from red moons, wrapped in peace and guarded by the memory of Marcellus. He is still watching. Chapter 9. The Library Beneath the Ashes. The night grows deep. The city sleeps, and the ashes of forgotten ages stir softly beneath your thoughts. Tonight, we journey beneath stone and soot, beneath what remains, to find a place once hidden not by time, but by design. A vault of knowledge lost during Rome's great fires. A place no flame could burn, no empire could claim. This is the tale of the library beneath the ashes, and the words that were never meant to be read aloud. The fire that tried to erase it. In 64 CE, a fire swept through Rome. It burned for 6 days and 7 nights. Temples crumbled, homes vanished, statues melted into formless shadows. People blamed Emperor Nero. He blamed the Christians. But amidst the chaos, something else happened. In the heart of the Forum, where senators once spoke, where ideas bloomed like olive trees, the earth cracked. And beneath the scorched marble, a chamber was found, untouched by fire, cold as moonlight. A door with no handle, etched with a single phrase. Here, only silence may read. The man who found the passage. A young archivist named Lucanus discovered it. He had been cataloging charred scrolls when the floor beneath him gave way. He fell through darkness, landing in dust, soft, fragrant, untouched by smoke. He saw no torches, no flame, and yet the space was dimly lit by a pale gray-blue glow. Shelves lined the walls, but instead of papyrus or vellum, each book appeared to be made of glass. Some were clear, some smoky, others flecked with silver veins, like veins beneath human skin. And within each, writing danced, never still, letters that shimmered and slid as though alive. The living books. Lucanus reached for the nearest one. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, the letters inside froze, forming clear words. The story it told was familiar. It was his own memory, not written in poetry or prose, but emotion. The fear he felt as a child, the scent of bread from his mother's hands, the ache of a goodbye he never spoke. And then it faded, and the words melted once again. He tried another book, and this one told the future. A vision of a man older, wearier, himself closing the same book, alone in a place forgotten by all but dust. A library that reflected the soul. This was no ordinary archive. It did not store history. It stored echoes of hearts, of choices, of unspoken truths. And every reader saw something different. The books reshaped themselves, not to what you knew, but to what you feared or what you had buried. Lucanus stayed for hours, or perhaps days. There was no way to know. Time in the library moved with thought, not with sun. The guardian beneath the floor. In the center of the room, there was a circular stone table. On it, a single closed book, darker than the rest. Its cover bore no title, only a faint breathing. Yes, it breathed, slow, steady, almost soothing. Lucanus reached for it, and then she appeared. A woman cloaked in robes of ash and bronze, her face neither young nor old, her eyes reflecting stars that no sky held. She spoke gently. That book is not for reading. It is for remembering. What does it remember? Lucanus asked. She smiled. The city, the book of Rome itself. She told him the truth. The dark book on the table was Rome. Not its stones or rulers or laws, but its dreams, its regrets, its longing. Every time a heart broke in Rome, a page turned. Every time someone hoped, another page was written. And when the last page turns, she said, the city will sleep until it is dreamed again. Lucanus sat beside the book for a long while. He never opened it, but he could feel it pulse, like a heartbeat or a lullaby. The door seals itself again. Eventually, the ash fell thick across the land once more. Earthquakes shifted the stone, and the entrance to the library vanished. Some say it sank. Others believe it retreated, moved deeper beneath the bones of Rome, waiting, as all forgotten things do, for someone to remember them. Whispers in modern dust. In the 20th century, during excavations beneath the Roman Forum, a worker claimed to find a hollow space. He swore he heard pages turning, though there was no air. And he described a woman in bronze robes who touched his chest and said, "You carry too many unread books inside you. Let go, or you will forget yourself." He left the dig the next day. He never returned. So, what was it? A magical archive? A memory vault? A breathing city within the city? Perhaps Rome never needed statues and scrolls to remember itself. Perhaps it simply listens and stores what it hears in pages of unwritten time. And as you rest tonight, feel the hush of dust settling. Feel the silence between your thoughts. You too hold stories unwritten, books unopened. And deep beneath your dreams, a library waits, not to judge, not to remind, only to reflect. Sleep now, listener. Let your memories shelve themselves gently in the quiet beyond the flame, where no fire can burn them, and no time can fade them.
Chapter 10. The Law That Was Never Spoken, Veiled in Silver and Silence. The wind speaks only in sighs, and somewhere beneath the marble bones of Rome a secret stirs, not in ink nor in stone, but in silence. Tonight we travel into the breathless corridors of law, not as it was recorded, but as it was remembered only by those who dared not speak its name. This is the tale of Lex Immemorata, the law that was never spoken. A law unwritten, unrecorded, unspoken aloud, but always obeyed. The 12 tables and one more. Every Roman schoolchild knew the 12 tables, Rome's foundation of civic law. Inscribed in bronze, displayed in the Forum, they promised order to an empire teetering on the edge of chaos. But in the back rooms of the Senate, behind curtains thick with dust and whispers, there were rumors of a 13th law, not carved, not codified, but passed down in silence, from senator to senator, judge to judge, whisper to whisper. And it could only be heard in dreams. The magistrate who forgot his name. In the year 144 BCE, a young magistrate named Silvius Gracchus awoke from a dream. His sheets were tangled, his throat was dry, and on the inside of his palm a phrase had appeared in pale red. Lex non scripta, lex memoriae. The law unwritten is the law of memory. That day he sat in judgment over a theft trial, a baker accused of stealing his neighbor's grain. But when Gracchus looked into the man's eyes, he saw something else. A memory that was not his, a boy crying in a cellar, an oath made in the dark. He dismissed the case, wrote no explanation, and for the rest of his life
never ruled by the 12 tables again. He judged only by the law he heard in sleep. The whispering chamber. Beneath the curia, the Senate house, lay a small doorless room. It had no windows, no torches, only a stone bench and the faint sound of water dripping endlessly. This was known only as the Camera Muta, the Chamber of Silence. No one entered alone. No one returned unchanged. According to one scroll, senators were taken there only once, and only after their 10th year in service. They would sit in silence until something was heard. Some claimed to hear a voice, others a single bell far below the city, and one man, Cassianus Pollio, was said to have emerged with white hair, though he was only 28. He never spoke again, but his eyes were always watching. The price of knowing. The law that was never spoken wasn't like others. It didn't forbid. It didn't command. It simply showed the truth. Not the truth of the law, but the truth behind it. Judges who heard it wept openly in court. Some vanished. A few wandered the countryside, writing nothing, speaking only in riddles, seeking no payment. One built a small shrine near the Tiber, carved with a single line: "To remember is to obey." The woman who remembered for others. In a small villa outside Rome lived an old woman named Livia Artha. She was blind. She spoke slowly, and strangers visited her in the deepest hours of night. No records tell of her birth or death, but among the fragments of a burned journal, one line remains: "She keeps the law in dreams, so we may forget it in waking." Some said she had once been a Vestal virgin. Others believed she was older than Rome itself. Whatever the truth, when people came to her in distress, when law failed and justice faded, she would listen. And in the end, she would murmur a phrase only the visitor could understand. They would leave, often in tears, but always changed. The law's only rule. Unlike other Roman laws, this one had only one rule. Once you speak it, you lose it. That's why no scrolls survive. Why no senator ever wrote it down. Once spoken, the law would disappear from memory, like fog in sun. So it lived only in silence and in the spaces between words. Those who knew it carried it like a shadow, not heavy, but always there, in our time. In 1932, beneath the ruins of the Basilica Aemilia, archaeologists found a tile mosaic that seemed out of place. It was newer than the others, unlabeled, worn by many feet. But under certain light, a Latin inscription shimmered just below the surface: "Lex qui dormit vivit," the law that sleeps lives. And next to it, a small indentation, as if meant for a hand. When a worker placed his palm there, he fainted. He awoke hours later, whispering only, "I must go home. I must apologize." No one knew to whom. And tonight, perhaps in your quiet moments, in the hush before dreams, you too have felt a rule unspoken guiding your heart. A moment when law said one thing, but your soul whispered another. That is the echo of the law that was never spoken. It does not punish. It does not reward. It only remembers. And as you sleep, wrapped in the calm breath of night, let it remind you that some truths are too deep for parchment, too sacred for proclamation, too kind to be spoken aloud. Sleep now, listener. The law is silent tonight, but its peace surrounds you, always. Chapter 11. The Theater That Never Performed. The lamps have dimmed, and Rome, with all her centuries, breathes softly beneath the hush of midnight. Tonight, we drift again into the forgotten. But this tale is not about voices rising, nor applause echoing off columns. It is not about fame or triumph. It is about a stage without sound, a performance never written, a curtain that never rose. This is the story of the theater that never performed, a place where silence said more than any script ever could. The marble stage beneath Aventine Hill. Not far from the bustling Circus Maximus, beneath the gentle slope of Aventine Hill, there once stood a structure known only as the Theatrum Sine Vox, the theater without voice. It was not grand like Pompey's theater. It had no statues, no murals, no marble arches bearing names of patrons or emperors. Just smooth, round stone, pale gray, and terribly quiet. Built not for the masses, but for those who had seen too much. The man with no scripts. A man named Faustus Alien was its creator. Not a playwright, not a senator, just a quiet stonemason with a limp and sorrowful eyes. He had returned from the frontiers of Germania, where he had once served Rome with sword and shield. But he came back not to speak of war, only to carve. For 12 years he labored alone beneath the Aventine, carving benches into the hill's belly. No one helped him. He asked for no coin. He hired no crew. And when it was finished, he placed no sign, no tablet, no dedication. Just a single inscription over the entrance. For those who carry what cannot be said. An audience of shadows. They came slowly at first. A widow who hadn't spoken in years. A veteran whose hands shook at every sudden sound. A boy who had once heard things no child should ever hear. They sat in silence, row upon row. No performers arrived. No music played. But something happened. As they sat beneath the open sky, as the stars turned their ancient eyes downward, something in the air would shift. Not quite wind, not quite presence. A weight would lift, a memory would soften, and always someone would begin to cry, not loudly, but as though their soul was quietly washing itself clean. The invisible performance. Some said the theater held ghosts. Others claimed it amplified thought, a space where emotion could be heard even without voice. Faustus never explained. When asked what his theater performed, he would only answer, "Everything you could not say today is what performs tonight." And that was all. The day the emperor came. One day, it is said, Emperor Marcus Aurelius arrived unannounced. He sat on the lowest bench, no guards, no fanfare. The audience did not stir. He stayed for hours, spoke to no one. And when he left, a witness remembered a single tear on the emperor's cheek. That night, the emperor wrote in his meditations, "There is healing in listening to what has no sound." The curtain of light. Some evenings, especially just before dusk, visitors described seeing a faint shimmer across the stage, like mist or heat rising from sand. And within that veil, shapes would appear. A woman reaching for a child, a soldier burying his face in his hands, a figure simply sitting, still as stone, with sorrow pooling at their feet. These were not ghosts, nor illusions. They were echoes, not of death, but of unspoken grief. No applause, only peace. There were no ovations, no clapping hands, only the sound of breath. And when the watchers left, they always walked slower, as though the weight of their silence had been shared, and gently returned, lighter. Some never returned. Some came every week. Faustus remained, sweeping the dust, smoothing the benches, greeting each visitor with only a nod. The final performance. Faustus passed away in his sleep at the edge of winter. He was found seated in his theater, his hands folded, a faint smile across his face. No burial was announced, no tomb was built. Only a single red ribbon was placed on the bench where he had always sat. And that night, the theater filled itself. People came, hundreds, perhaps more. And though there was no stage light, no players, no speech, every person present felt understood. That night became known as the night of listening. Time passes. Stone remains. Years wore on. Fires came. Walls fell. Hills shifted. The entrance to the Theatrum Sine Vox vanished beneath ivy and silence. Some believe it still exists. Others say it now lives in people, not places. But those who have sat beside mountains, beside oceans, or under starlit ceilings in sleepless hours, they may still feel it. The stillness, the curtain, the moment when something unspoken begins to rise in you and be released softly like breath. As you rest tonight, let your thoughts take their place in the theater's hush. No need to speak them. No need to perform. Just let them sit beside you. Let them be witnessed. Let them be felt. And let go. And as the invisible curtain falls across the stage of your mind, know this. You do not need to say the thing. You need only to let it be heard in silence. Sleep now, listener. The theater is ready. The stars are watching. And the performance of peace has already begun.
Chapter 12. The Banquet for the Dead. Traveler of the quiet hours. The city of Rome slumbers beneath moonlight, her stones warm from the memory of sunlight, her shadows long and watchful. Tonight, we do not wander through ruins or temples, but instead follow a scent, faint, sweet, and strange. Olives soaked in honey, roasted pine nuts, and a wine no one remembers brewing. This is the scent of a feast, but not for emperors, not for priests or poets. Tonight's tale is of a gathering far older and far quieter. This is the story of the banquet for the dead. A table set for those who are no longer seen. The table beneath the hill. Far from the crowded forum, beyond the Appian Way, lies a hill untouched by time, the Calle Silens. It is not marked on maps, but every 100 years, at the turning of spring to summer, when the moon is new and the night sky clear, something stirs beneath its gentle slope. A stone door opens, not with noise, but with breath. And from within emerges a long marble table, wide enough for 50, carved with vines, wolves, stars, and faces forgotten. It is said this table belongs to the feast eternalis, the banquet for the dead. The invisible hosts. No one sees the guests arrive, but the chairs fill slowly. Some say they feel a chill on the wind. Others speak of shadows flickering without flame. And a few, very few, have heard the soft creak of robes and laughter that never reaches the ears. The hosts are not ghosts. They do not haunt. They do not linger. They remember. And in remembering, they gather. Each chair is for someone who lived a life uncelebrated. A slave who dreamed in poetry.
a soldier who planted flowers behind the barracks, a mother who told bedtime stories the world never wrote down. They come not for mourning, but for supper, the meal that cannot rot. Upon the table, dishes appear, not carried, but simply present. Bread that steams but never cools, figs sliced into crescent moons, a stew that smells like childhood and the first day of harvest. No one eats, and yet no one hungers, because this banquet is not of the body, it is of memory. Each plate holds a feeling, a kindness once given, a goodbye left unsaid, a song hummed to a baby who forgot it by morning. This is how the dead dine, the one time the living joined. There is only one recorded night when a living soul sat at the banquet. It was the year 9 BCE. A young scribe named Calvus Arrhenius followed a scent through the forest, chasing it like a child drawn by a lullaby. He found the table, glowing pale in the moonlight. He sat, and for a moment nothing happened. Then a figure appeared beside him, faceless yet familiar. It took his hand, not cold, not warm, and Calvus wept. He wrote later, "I remembered a lullaby my mother hummed, though she had died before I could speak. I remembered the feel of my brother's cloak who had vanished into the Alps. I remembered being loved." And when he returned to the city, he never wrote again. He simply listened to others and gave them their stories back. Why the banquet exists. The Romans believed in ritual, in burial, in coin and fire. But this banquet was different. It did not honor power. It did not raise monuments. It asked only one thing: remember the unnamed. That was its vow, to feed the forgotten with presence, to bring peace through silence, to celebrate the love that left no statue behind. When it ends, just before dawn, the final moment comes. The wind hushes, the fig leaves still, and the scent of sweetbread fades. The guests are no longer seated, but in the empty bowls are hints of gold light, and the table bears new carvings, images of those who sat that night, smiling, sleeping, seen. The stone door closes. The hill grows quiet once more, and for another century the table rests. And perhaps the banquet is not so far. Perhaps when you sit in quiet and remember someone long gone, someone with no fame, no story told in marble, you are lighting a candle at their place at the table. You are serving the memory, and the dead, in turn, serve peace to you. As you drift tonight, close your eyes. Let the table be set. Let your thoughts gather gently. Let every goodbye you've carried too long find a seat. There is no need to speak, no need to explain. Just sit beside the unseen, and let yourself be remembered too. Sleep now, listener. The banquet is waiting, and the stars are already seated.
Chapter 13. The Ink That Could Not Fade. Her stones are quiet. Her fountains murmur like half-remembered dreams. You and I, we return now to the hush beneath history. But this time, not into shadow or silence, we follow the trail of words. Words written by a hand now dust, inked in black so deep it glimmered like obsidian. Words that refuse to fade, long after the parchment crumbled. This is the story of the ink that could not fade. The scroll without a scribe. In the vast imperial archives once hidden beneath the Palatine Hill, where scribes by torchlight copied law, letters, and legacy, there was once a sealed scroll, with no title, no author, and no known date. Its edges were frayed, its parchment dry as ash. But the ink, oh, the ink, it shone, black as raven feather, sharp as a whisper in a cathedral, and it would not fade, not with time, not with flame, not even when submerged in oil or wine. It defied the forgetting. The scholar who listened. Her name was Tullia Emiliana, a quiet archivist, known more for her silence than her scholarship. But she had a gift. She could read intentions, not just letters. She often said, "Ink has breath. You only need to slow your own enough to hear it." One day, she found the scroll tucked inside a cracked ivory case, unmarked, wedged behind tablets listing Rome's harvest taxes. It called to her, not with voice, but with weight, a gravity of presence that pulled her gaze gently, like moonlight on water. She unrolled it and began to read. The words that were not written. But what she read was impossible. The scroll bore no known Roman script. It shimmered in shapes that changed beneath her breath. Not alphabet, not rune, but something older. Yet she understood. Not with her eyes, but with the part of the soul that recognizes a lullaby sung before memory was born. The words told of things not recorded. The girl who stopped a civil war with a single poem. The baker who hid refugees beneath flour sacks, one loaf at a time. The orphan boy who climbed the outer wall of the Senate and sang truths that made even consuls weep. Each story vivid, real, but absent from every known history. This was not a scroll of power, but of the forgotten good. Ink made from midnight. Tullia sought every scholar she trusted. None could decipher the script. None could explain the ink. But an old healer named Veturius whispered of a forbidden formula used only once centuries ago. Ink brewed from raven bone, crushed with myrrh and the dew of a sleepless night, stirred until it listens. The ink, he said, would only bond with truth, not glory, not fame, only truth that tried to hide. It was made not to be seen, but to never disappear. The scroll that changed itself. As Tullia continued reading over the years, she noticed something even stranger. The scroll added to itself. New lines, new names. No hand touched it, no brush or stylus hovered nearby. And yet, when she returned to it after rest, more tales had appeared, like mist forming letters on cold glass. It did not record empires, only kindness, only quiet defiance, only goodness that would otherwise be lost. When the fire came. In the year of 4 emperors, flames reached the archives. Scrolls were consumed by thousands. Columns fell. Ash danced through the streets like funeral veils. But days later, in the ruins, among the soot and silence, the scroll remained, unburned, untouched, still inked in black as night. And across its top, a new line had formed. What does not seek to be remembered shall be. The scroll vanishes. Tullia was never seen again after the fire.
Some say she fled, scroll in hand, to the catacombs beneath San Clemente. Others say she walked into the sea, the scroll floating beside her like a boat made of thought. But some say she still writes, not with hands, but with memory. Every time someone does a kindness no one notices, every time a gentle truth is told and left behind, a new line is added to the scroll, somewhere, unseen, but never forgotten, where the ink lives now. Perhaps the scroll lies in a monastery library behind a false wall. Perhaps it whispers to monks as they doze, guiding their quills without their knowing. Or maybe it lives in every inkpot that has ever trembled before truth. But most likely, it lives within you, because every act of compassion, however unseen, leaves a mark, not on stone, not on scroll, but on eternity. And that mark cannot fade. As you drift into sleep, let your breath slow, dear listener. Feel the scroll unrolling in your mind, not with pressure, but with peace. Let the ink settle gently like snow. Let your memories wander. Recall something good, something kind, something you thought had been forgotten. It hasn't been. It has been written in ink that does not fade. Sleep well, watcher of quiet truths. The scribe of stars is listening, and the scroll is never full. Chapter 14. The Bridge That Only Appeared at Night. The stones are warm with yesterday's sun, and once again we drift together into a Rome few remember. Beneath the hush of twilight, where the Tiber flows like silver through the heart of the city, there once stood a bridge that was not always there. It did not span the water by day. It could not be seen by lantern or torch. But when the moon hung low and all voices softened into dreams, it appeared, softly, completely, and without sound. This is the story of the bridge that only appeared at night, the river that watched without judgment. The Tiber, called Tiberias by the ancients, has always been more than water. It remembers. It remembers the rise of emperors and the cries of orphans. It remembers ashes scattered in silence. It remembers hands once joined, now parted by time. And perhaps, in its remembering, the river gave birth to something merciful. A bridge, made not of stone, but of memory. A bridge that did not carry armies, but hearts that had been broken. The first crossing. No one built the bridge. No architect chiseled its edges. No decree named it. But one night, long ago, a widow named Lucilla stood at the edge of the river, holding a candle that would not stay lit. Her husband had died in a storm at sea. His body never returned, his grave unmarked. She came to the Tiber nightly, whispering his name. And on the 13th night, the water shimmered, not with moonlight, but with form. A pathway began to rise. Planks of light, rope made from breath, pillars that hummed like a lullaby. And on the other side, she saw him. What was spoken without words. He did not speak. He did not move. But his presence, it was whole. Lucilla stepped forward, each footfall a memory. The first time they danced in the courtyard, the joke he made about figs, the night he told her she had given his soul a home. The bridge glowed beneath her. She did not reach him, but she did not need to. The crossing was enough. And when she turned back, she wept not in sorrow, but in peace. Who the bridge chose. Only the grieving side. Only those with unfinished farewells. Only those who had once loved deeply and been left without goodbye. A young soldier who lost his brother. A mother whose child died before his name was spoken. An old man who had abandoned a friend in youth and never forgave himself. They came, unknowingly drawn by dreams. They found no structure by daylight, but each night the bridge rose anew, a little different in shape, but always the same in soul. It did not let everyone cross, but it let everyone see, and that was enough.
There was a man, or something like a man, who sometimes stood at the midpoint of the bridge. Tall, cloaked in dusk, face veiled in shadows. He never spoke. But if a mourner hesitated, he would raise a hand. And suddenly the weight they carried, the guilt, the longing, the silence would lift. Not vanish, but soften, like ice under spring sun. He was called Pontifex Umbrae, the bridge tender of shadows. Some say he was a god forgotten. Others say he was the first man who ever lost someone he loved. But most say he is still there. When the bridge disappeared. One year, during a harsh winter, the Tiber froze, a rare and wondrous event. And for several nights the bridge did not appear. The mourners waited. The silence grew heavy. But on the seventh night, the ice cracked not with noise, but with light. The bridge returned, brighter than before, and this time it stayed until sunrise. Those who saw it bathed in dawn said it shimmered like tears turning into stars. And when it faded, a message was left, carved into the riverbank. Grief does not end, but it changes its shape. Where it may be now. The bridge is not seen in maps. No inscription marks its name. No ruins recall its span. But perhaps, on a quiet night, if you walk along the Tiber just before moonrise, you may feel the air change. You may feel warmth near the coldest water. You may see a shimmer just at the corner of your sight. And you may remember someone long gone, someone whose name still echoes gently within you. And in that moment, the bridge may be there, even if only in your heart. As you drift tonight, close your eyes. Picture the river, still and calm. The stars reflected like lanterns lost in time. Let your feet find the first step. Let your breath match the current. And if someone waits for you on the other side, even if just for a moment, let your heart cross that hidden span. Grief has its own bridges, its own language, its own peace. Sleep gently now, dream walker. You are not alone. The bridge still rises just for you.
Chapter 15. The Gate That Refused to Open. The night is calm. The stars blink softly above the rooftops of forgotten Rome.
And as you lie in the hush between one thought and the next, let us walk one final time through the shadows of the ancient world. There is a place older than the Forum, older than any written law, a place the emperors dared not enter, a place the Senate never named, a gate no one could open, even when pushed by 1,000 hands, even when struck by hammers or whispered to by priests. It stood unmoved. It was not locked. It simply refused. This is the story of the gate that refused to open. The arch with no road. Tucked between the Aventine and the Capitoline, beyond the sight of curious tourists or triumphant generals, there was once a small marble arch. It bore no inscription. Its keystone was blank. Its path led nowhere. A gate with no wall, a threshold to silence. It was not tall nor grand, and yet, when approached, one felt watched, as though the stones themselves were listening. The people called it Janua Tacita, the silent gate, and no one, not even the Vestals or the augurs, could explain its presence. The girl who heard the gate speak. Long ago, there lived a child named Marcia, daughter of a stonemason. Quiet, curious, and often left to wander while her father carved names into tombs. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of sleep, she sat beside the gate, drawing shapes in the dust. She was not afraid, and as the sun dipped below the Tiber's edge, she swore she heard something. A whisper, not in words, but in feeling, like a sigh held for centuries, like a wound that never asked to be healed. Not all doors are meant to open, it seemed to say. And so Marcia returned, night after night. She never tried to open it. She simply listened. The legion that vanished. Centuries earlier, during a forgotten rebellion, an ambitious general ordered his men to tear down the gate. He called it a superstition, an insult to Roman strength. His soldiers set up torches, ropes, and pulleys. They sang drinking songs. They mocked the gate of silence. And when the moon reached its peak that night, they vanished. All 312 of them. Gone. Their tents were untouched. Their armor lay scattered. Only their voices remained, faint echoes beneath the stones, like wind caught in a bottle. From that day forward, no one touched the gate again. What the gate held back. Some whispered that behind the gate was a curse. Others said it hid the regrets of emperors, the ones too dark to record. A few believed it was the final seal upon Rome's first secret, older even than the wolves who raised Romulus. But there was one belief more haunting than the rest, that the gate did not hold back danger, but grief. That it kept at bay every sorrow never spoken, every betrayal buried in the name of glory, every scream muffled beneath marble, a dam of tears. And should it open, Rome would weep for 1,000 years. The woman who tried to open it with silence. In the waning days of the empire, a woman named Sibelia, a priestess of no known cult, appeared before the gate. She carried no scrolls, no incense, no offerings, only a vow. She would speak no words for 10 years. And in that silence, she believed, the gate might answer her. She lived beside it, prayed beside it, ate from the moss that grew in its cracks. And on the final day of her 10th year, she stood before it at dusk. She placed her hands upon the marble and wept silently. The wind stilled, the birds ceased their songs, and the gate
trembled, just once, not open, but awake, and from within came a single sound, a heartbeat, slow, steady, as though the gate was alive. Where the gate stands now. Today you will not find the Llanura Tacita on any map. Even those who lived their whole lives in Rome pass its space without knowing. But some say, if you walk the quieter alleys near the Capitoline Hill, if you pause at the right broken column between two laurel trees no longer there, you might feel it. Not see, not hear, just sense, a pressure in the air like breath held too long. And if you close your eyes, you may feel the gate pressing against your memory. It asks nothing. It offers nothing. It only reminds. Some truths are not buried. They are guarded. As you drift into sleep, let go now. The world quiets. No need to open every door. No need to solve every riddle. Some things, like grief, are meant to be held, not fixed. Some gates are not meant to open, but to be understood. Rest your thoughts at its threshold. Let your breath rise and fall like the Tiber's tide. And know this, even what is unspoken is heard. Even what is sealed is seen. Sleep well, keeper of unsaid words. The night is watching over you, and the gate remains closed, just as it must be.